Well, I'm glad we're in such a jovial mood, because today we're talking about the comedy categories at the Emmys. And that's a segue. I was asking before we started recording about these categories, and my main thought is, how much is the Academy going to love Schitt's Creek, and has Maisel fallen that far? Because that seems to be, most of these categories come down to, is it Maisel or is it Schitt's Creek?
That was what we expected heading into nominations, and was basically confirmed. It's interesting. I know Ben was talking last year about really assuming that Maisel had things all locked up heading into the Primetime Emmys last year because they did so well at the Creative Arts Emmys the weekend before. But there is a divide, because when you're dealing with actors, that's the acting branch voting on them. When you're dealing with crafts, specifically like cinematography and editing, that is that peer group voting on that. So it's not quite linear in the way we would like it to be. But at the same time, I don't know anything, and this is a total clusterfuck. Ben?
I don't know what else there is to say, really, after this is a total clusterfuck. I think that's exactly it. Honestly, I'm most upset with Bill Hader, because he was unable to complete a new season of Barry, and had he been able to do that, I would have had a much more vested interest in who actually won in a lot of these categories. And I also think that, again, had it continued apace with its first two seasons, Barry could very well be the leader at this point. It could have gotten 21 nominations, and it could have,
I would love to know what happened there. Because they were never on track to release this season. Not having Fleabag, obviously, this year. Not having Barry seems very cruel for people who like a little edge on their comedy that they aren't necessarily getting from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or Schitt's Creek or The Good Place. There's I kind of have to get my black comedy in the drama race, which is weird. So it's hard to say. As I mentioned, maybe in previous podcasts, I'm actually feeling much higher on Schitt's Creek after the nominations, just because that does feel like a buzz cycle. Like, I don't hear anyone talking about Maisel ever, but that's sort of the status quo for them. I expect them to still have a really great week at the Creative Arts Emmys. And we'll have that'll be fun. I'm actually looking forward to elements of that, because those nights are arranged in very specific peer groups. And I think we'll be able to track who is leaning which way. And if Maisel's as dominant as it was last year, if something's changed, and if, God forbid, we see a Schitt's Creek sweep all the way across.
I think I'm going to go down with the ship. Like, before nominations, I was very much on record of being like, I'm not buying into the Schitt's Creek hype. I think Maisel's going to be a titan, and there's certain categories where I've, as we'll get into, relented a bit on Schitt's Creek, but to me, there's either a bias on my end and the rest of us who don't really love Schitt's Creek that's clouding opinions of how well it can do, or there's a bias of people who've completely bought in, who love Schitt's Creek and think it will do amazingly well. And I don't know which way it could go. It could obviously go right down the middle. There's obviously people in both parties who are also going to be the voters, so it's like you said, it's a clusterfuck. But I think on my end, I'm probably just going to be a stubborn jackass and go down with the ship.
No, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's what that's what I was stumping for months, like arguing against this Schitt's Creek narrative, which at some point I think these narratives sort of foster themselves. Especially
it's like a self-fulfilling
in a vacuum.
prophecy.
A little bit. There was something about when the Emmy nominations came out, there is the fan base for that show is so loud and so enthusiastic and so in love with it. They were very excited and very convinced in the show's chances. But the reason I can't completely discount that is that I was exactly the same way last year with Fleabag. And, you know, so I'm not as confident as I was.
So getting into the actual categories themselves, for Best Supporting Actress, Ben, you have Yvonne Orji from Insecure. Libby, based on your Gold Derby, you have Alex Borstein. Ben, in your sort of like your little categories, you have that Yvonne will win. You have could win as Darcy Carden from The Good Place, Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek, and Libby's pick, Alex Borstein from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And then you say should win Betty Gilpin, Glow. I guess explain yourself?
Show your work.
I mean, the last one, the should win, I don't need to. Betty showed it for me. Like, that's the most... This is one of the easier picks in the should win options available. Like her work on Glow is outstanding. Like, she just does everything. She's given new challenges of like anything you can imagine. She's been asked to do it on that show, and she does it in a new, creative, fun, exciting way. So, like,
which of your could win nominees do you think has the best chance of unseating your sort of number one pick right now, Yvonne Orji?
Well, first of all, I'll say that the safe money is on Alex Borstein, especially given that there's 8 nominees in the category. The fact that she's won 2 in a row, and she's on the most nominated show, and she continues to be just, you know, a delightful person as well as like playing a delightful character. Like, she's just somebody that everybody really likes, so it's easy to continue to vote for her. As well as the fact that there's not a clear alternate. There's not somebody who's like, this is the year for them. This is this is their time. They had the perfect role at the perfect moment, and they broke out, and they're huge, and this is going to happen. So I'd say the safe money's on Alex Borstein. But what my mind has latched onto this year is the idea that in the supporting actress category, we've seen repeat winners a bunch of times. Like, over the last 10 years, we've had, I think, 3 different actresses, starting with Julie Bowen on Modern Family, and ending with, presumably, Alex Borstein on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, who've won back-to-back years, and then they're done. So, with that in mind, Borstein's done. Who else could it be? I think Darcy Carden has a decent shot because she's a fan favorite from the people who love that show. The Good Place has been getting nominations over the years, so it's pretty well respected. But it's also her first year nominated, so it's not like there's a huge surge around this person, and it's like she has to win. I don't even remember who's the other person.
Schitt's Creek, Annie Murphy.
Yeah, it's the Schitt's Creek argument we've already talked about before. If there's going to be a sweep, then Annie Murphy would be a part of that, obviously. But for me, the pick with Yvonne was just that she has the most bona fides for this particular year, if it's not going to be Borstein. Insecure got 8 nominations, including a comedy series. It did better than people thought it would do. It had great reviews for its most recent season. She had a stand-up special that came out very recently, pegged to this season. So, like, her name and her character also had a really good arc in season 4 that people paid attention to. So, like, that could have gotten people to watch or to jump back in. It also could have just stimulated the fan base that had already, you know, been supporting the show and been excited about her. So to me, if there's going to be somebody who's not Borstein, then I think it's probably going to be Yvonne. But again, I think I mentioned this at the bottom of the predictions page. There's 8 nominees. There's 8 nominees, and there's no one who's like, it's got to be that one. So safe bet's Borstein, and then otherwise it's just a best guess.
I find it difficult to argue with any of Ben's takes on this category. I have Borstein because I don't know that there's enough unrest in the category to overturn the queen. But if there is, I do think it's Yvonne Orji. But then at the same time, I completely wouldn't be surprised if, like, Kate McKinnon just floated in.
She already had her too. Like, when Ben was talking, she had her back to back.
I mean, like, this is just in a category like this, it really feels like it's like, who do I like? Like this feels very much like a popularity contest category, and I'm not entirely sure how that shakes out.
Well, moving on to another category that has 8 nominees, though I think we'd all agree this has a stronger tiered. There's definitely a foursome at the top of this 8 that you would say the winner is going to come from. Ben, you haven't written about this for the site yet, so I had to pull Libby's Gold Derby.
God forbid.
And Libby has Mahershala, friend of the pod, Mahershala Ali, winning for Rami. And she has them followed by Dan Levy, Tony Shalhoub, and Sterling K. Brown, who I would say are probably the strongest contenders to knock him off of Libby's list. Ben, what are your thoughts on the fly on this category?
There's a reason that I haven't written about this yet. Part of it is just scheduling. Part of it is I don't want to. I don't like this category in the sense that there's actually people who I really would love to see win. I'd love to see Mahershala win, obviously. Sterling, obviously. Andre Brower would be great. William Jackson Harper would be great. Like, there's a lot of people who are really, really exciting. And again, there's a lot of kind of specific cases that could be made for just about anybody pulling this off. I think Mahershala is a great bet. Shalhoub is a friggin' juggernaut and all-time spoiler at the Emmys. Like, just somebody who will ruin your night when you thought it was locked up. So,
a ballot buster.
Hard to bet against him, but I guess on the fly, I'd probably go with Mahershala as well.
This one feels a little bit like an indicator. Like, if Shalhoub wins this, then maybe Maisel wins. Because I mean, this is a place. Dan Levy is Schitt's Creek. He's the creator. He's the showrunner. He's one of the stars. So maybe they really want him on stage giving a speech by himself. Maybe they really want to speak that. Maybe they really love the show, and his character's arc was really at the heart of that final season, especially. And and if that happens, maybe it goes Schitt's Creek. Like I don't know. So that's why I'm picking Mahershala, because I don't want to know what's going to happen for the rest of the ceremony. I just want them to give good people things.
Well, moving on, speaking of Schitt's Creek, to Best Actress, Ben, you and Libby are in agreement here that Catherine O'Hara will likely take home this award, followed in your rankings by Issa Rae for Insecure, Rachel Brosnahan for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and then Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini from Dead to Me, and Tracy Ellis Ross from Blackish. In your could win, you obviously have Issa Rae and Rachel Brosnahan. Again, it seems like it comes down to what's in the voters' minds. At this point, we're sort of circling the drain with these 3 shows, Insecure, Schitt's Creek, and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And it just depends where their heads are at.
In this case, I'd love to see Issa play a spoiler, but I don't think she is. I just don't think it's her time, and Brosnahan's great. I love Brosnahan. She has won before. And I don't know how vital they feel it is to award her again, I guess, for that role, at least right now. I realize that runs counter to everything I said before nominations, but it's Catherine O'Hara, and she's really gunning for it, and she is doing these interviews, and it seems pretty clear she wants to win this Emmy, and I think
she hasn't won since 1982. That's
exactly.
When she her only other Emmy win is in 1982 for SCTV.
Same with Levy, right? He hasn't won.
Yeah. He won in 82 and 83. He has 2.
Right.
And this is the one thing that I think everybody pretty much agrees on when it comes to Schitt's Creek, is that Catherine O'Hara is great. So like even before nominations came around and Schitt's Creek had its surge, it seemed like this was going to be their best chance to win. Now it seems like it's as close as they've got to a lock, even though, again, there is still intense competition and there are spoilers available. But the fact that she hasn't won in so long, the fact that among the cast, this seems to be like the favorite character, the really possibly, kind of landmark character that people will quote and reference and send gifs around for years to come. And also it's Catherine O'Hara, like she's great. So it seems like, because if there's going to be any sort of urgency behind Schitt's Creek this year, this is the one that would carry the most of that, would where people would be like, we really don't want to miss out on this chance. So I don't know if I buy it for the whole show. I don't know if I buy it in every other category, but I am buying into it this time around. So
it feels like a role that every actress in Hollywood hopes is waiting for her when they get to Catherine O'Hara's age. And I think maybe giving her that award is positive reinforcement for creation of roles for older women in Hollywood.
Now, I will say that I do have one source that I trust pretty strongly when it comes to these things, and they've got Rachel Brosnahan at the top of the list. I don't know what they're thinking. I haven't talked to them yet, but luckily they're here on the podcast.
Oh boy,
Rude Man, could you tell us how you chose Rachel Brosnahan in your rankings?
Well, I will say, as I was quickly clicking through all the Gold Derby categories, I think I was just still mentally in a state of mind where I don't believe the Schitt's Creek hype, and I just think that she won this award 2 years ago. I think the only thing that stopped her from winning it last year was Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Sort of once in a lifetime, it sort of captured the zeitgeist in a certain way. And I think like if Phoebe Waller-Bridge isn't there, she probably wins last year. And so I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
And so I don't know if there's that big a dip in terms of Maisel quality from season 2 to season 3. Say what you will about season 1 to season 2, but season 2 to season 3 to say like, oh, she's no longer the person that we thought. Like she's still the same caliber of actress and doing the same thing in this role. So I just think it feels like if last year hadn't happened the way it did, she probably wins that award, and she probably is waltzing towards this award.
I mean, last year she would have lost to Julia Louis-Dreyfus if not for Phoebe
Right,
Waller-Bridge.
because everyone loves final seasons of comedies.
Schitt's Creek. Schitt's Creek is going to prove us all wrong. That's the other thing about Schitt's Creek is that it seems to violate everything else you guys have taught me about how these television academies award things.
This is the only rule you need about the Emmys, is that you can have every rule and then a show will come in and destroy everything, all of your beautiful models and like logically laid out plans. I totally agree with your Brosnahan argument because I was the one making it 6 months ago, but at the same time, the longer I sit on it, the more I think she won for the first season. She would have won for the second season. Would she have won for the third season, or are they ready to move on?
And the idea is that the window closed last year, like that.
Yeah.
They were going to give her back to back and say we're now done with Maisel.
I can't imagine that the window is closed because Maisel is still so strong. And then the other thing to point out is like Julia and like so many other categories, they are willing to do that. They are willing to keep giving people the same award over and over and over again. We talk about it as prognosticators, and we talk about it as viewers who want to see turnover and are like, you know what, they've had their time. I can see voters being like, we're done with this, we're going to move on to the next person. And there is always that year where, you know, Mad Men stops winning and Modern Family stops winning and the juggernauts go away. But usually you see that in more than just like one category. It's usually like a nominations dip goes way down. So I support the Rude Man argument of Rachel Brosnahan with the idea being Maisel is still incredibly strong. And they're very, very, very okay with giving people 2, 3, 4 trophies for the same role. So
you both have Catherine O'Hara from Schitt's Creek, and surprise, surprise, you both have Eugene Levy from Schitt's Creek in the Best Actor race. Ben, in your could win, you have Ted Danson, who's been nominated 18 times, but only won twice for Cheers in 1990 and 1993. And then you have...
see, the thing is, they like rewarding the same people over and over again for the same iconic roles, which is why he has so many Emmys. Is that... I'm sorry. Sorry, that was Ben's argument. That was Ben's argument.
And I don't even know if I'm going to keep it in because he was talking about my bad faith argument and Maisel. Your could win category, you have Ted Danson for the Good Place. As I just mentioned, he's been nominated 18 times. And then Rami Youssef for Rami. Which of those do you think has the strongest chance of, knocking Eugene Levy off the perch? And also, what if poor Don Cheadle, 10 nominations and no wins?
That poor guy needs to look into exactly why he can't get momentum going. But objectively, I think Rami has the best chance to beat Eugene Levy because he's new and he won the Globe, which isn't really a predictor of anything, but it gave him a boost and gave him awareness and possibly helped him get the nomination in the first place. But he's also the writer, director, showrunner of the show. Like, they like honoring those kind of people. We've seen Bill Hader succeed that way in the Best Actor category the last 2 years. So that's something. Like, Donald Glover had a similar boon. So if they do feel strongly enough about Rami, this could be like, okay, well, obviously we honor the guy it's named after, who's making it. We'll put him at number one. On my end, the Ted Danson thing is baffling. I really honestly think that people liked him on Cheers, gave him a bunch of nominations for that show, honored him for that show, continued liking him for years afterwards, and he'd keep kind of popping in and get nominations. But I don't know if they're paying enough attention to exactly like the work that he's doing, because if you really watch him on The Good Place, he's doing a lot of new stuff, and he's challenged himself, and he's created a new character, and he's really become kind of the heart of that, or he became the heart of that show. So much that he gets the final scene and he gets the final word and he gets kind of the final message. But he had so many moments within that I don't think anybody could really replicate or even pull off the way that Ted Danson did. Like, I think that he was instrumental to the success of that series, and that he never took it for granted. He never just kind of coasted on his own, star power or charisma or anything like that. So I really wish he'd get a win. Like, I really wish he'd win for this. I really think he deserves it. But it has felt like for a while that people just are kind of like, I love Ted Danson. People say he's good in this. I like him. I'll get him the nomination, but there's just not that same urgency of like, we got to give him another award. So that's why I'm kind of sticking with Levy at this point, and then would probably go Rami number 2. But, heart of hearts, give Ted Danson an Emmy, you cowards.
I will say this category, of all the comedy categories, is the most stacked in terms of nomination count. Because even though Rami only has 2, you have Eugene Levy with 13, and we mentioned earlier he won in 82 and 83. Danson with 18, winning twice. Don Cheadle with 10. Anthony Anderson with 9. And then Michael Douglas with 8. And he won for portraying Liberace in Behind the Candelabra. Ben, I don't think you have these. Obviously, you don't have these anywhere. I didn't check your Gold Derby. Libby, you have, for comedy writing, you have the What We Do in the Shadows episode Collaboration taking this award. Other strong contenders are the Good Place finale, Whenever You're Ready, and the Schitt's Creek finale, Happy Ending. And then there's 2 other What We Do in the Shadows episodes, including the Jackie Daytona episode, On the Run.
I have a question. So as we can all see, like on Gold Derby right now, Collaboration actually has the best odds to win this for whatever reason. Before we were recording, Ben asked me why I thought that was, and I gave him a very, very great answer. But let me pose a different question. If that episode was titled Jackie Daytona, would it be winning hands down?
Yes.
That's what I think too.
I feel like this is a question. I don't know if you're directing that as would it be winning in reality? Like, voters would be more prone to vote for it because they'd recognize Jackie Daytona? Or would it be winning in the Gold Derby rankings because the experts don't recognize that that's the show that they're talking about, and thus the odds would shift?
I mean, both. But I do think that there's a real... I would not have been able to tell you what the title of the Jackie Daytona episode was. I just assumed it was Jackie Daytona. That's, I think, a problem. Like, especially when you are getting nominations for episodes that are just kind of like in the middle of your season. So many writing and directing nominations, I think we see premieres and finales, which...
In that same regard, then the advantage here would go to Happy Ending from Schitt's Creek, because it literally has the word ending in it. So then voters are going to be like, we know this is the series finale. Like, we know this is the ending of the show. We're going to scan the list for the rest of them and be like, I don't remember, but I know that that's the finale and we should honor it. Check the box.
Right, but they love What We Do in the Shadows. They want to vote for What We Do in the Shadows. So they're going down the list They're like, I want to vote for What We Do in the Shadows. I don't remember what any of these fucking episodes are. It wasn't the ghost masturbation one. Let's go with the first one listed, which would be collaboration. There you go.
Here's my question. How much of sort of the cult of personality of the writer will influence this category? Because obviously you have Michael Schur penning the Good Place finale. You have Stephanie Robinson. You have Dan Levy. Is some of that just like, I want to award Michael Schur for all of the Good Place's work? I want to award... I'm all in on Schitt's Creek, so I'm giving Schitt's Creek everything.
No.
No, none.
I don't know. I don't feel that way, but now, I mean, I'm looking back at the writing winners, and you're not wrong. The
Phoebe
last writing
Waller-Bridge.
winners, yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Amy Sherman-Palladino, Aziz Ansari and Lena Waithe for Master of None, Aziz Ansari and Alan Yang for Master of None, and then Louis C.K., and then the 30 Rock finale, and Louis C.K. again.
And that is why I have, as Rube Man, have the Whenever You're Ready, The Good Place episode winning this category, in spite of all the What We Do in the Shadows love. For comedy directing, we have... Libby, you have It's Comedy or Cabbage, which is the Amy Sherman-Palladino episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I think I picked the Mia Khalifa.mov episode of Rami. But obviously I think on Gold Derby, the odds are in happy ending for Schitt's Creek's favor, but I might be wrong about that. How do you see this shaking out, Ben, since Libby is on the record as thinking it's going to be Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
I've got Maisel at the moment as well. It's just really hard for me to imagine a world in which the directors in particular would look at Schitt's Creek and say, this is where we really want to honor the show, especially compared to a lot of the other nominees in the category, which are just more formally challenging than what you'd cut together for Schitt's Creek, even with the finale. So I'm a little torn in the sense that, Amy Sherman-Palladino won recently. She didn't win last year. They might want to go with the other Maisel director just to spread it out. They might just like that episode. They might just like another finale, or they might really want to give it to the great for some reason. I don't know.
But if you look at the trends in direction for the last decade or so, after Modern Family was done dominating this category, weirdly, it was then Joey Soloway who won twice in a row for Transparent, which was a comedy doing very risky things. Then it was Donald Glover for Atlanta, and then it was Amy Sherman-Palladino for Maisel, which was, different than a lot of the things on there. And then it was Harry Bradbeer for Fleabag, which is another very directorial thing. It's not Schitt's Creek. There are a lot of opportunities for the Television Academy to award Schitt's Creek. I do not think it will be in this category.
Should we move on to the category where it might happen? That's
Yes.
comedy series. So it's again, we're sort of left with, I think, the three favorites across the board. Ben, you have The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel winning, but your could wins are Schitt's Creek and Insecure. Libby, you have Schitt's Creek on Gold Derby right now. What We Do in the Shadows is also in the mix, potentially the only legitimately laugh out loud comedy in the group of 8. Again, this final comedy series category comes down to that same distinction. Is it going to be Marvelous Mrs. Maisel holding steady? Is Schitt's Creek, the wave of Schitt's Creek, going to overtake it? Or will the Academy do something, new and reward something like Insecure or What We Do in the Shadows?
So yeah, it's down to these same two shows, just the way it's been the entire podcast, which I get is very tiring, but is how a lot of these races come down in the end. You're going to have your one or two dominant shows. The thing that I love about this year is that it's going to be really exciting to watch, I think, because I'm not 100% on what's going to win. I think there's still a lot of potential that things get really weird. And that's obviously what I'm rooting for. It's much easier to write about. But I'm just afraid I don't have great insight into this that we haven't repeated ad nauseum already.
Yeah, it's a good 2-horse race. We know why. We've established the ground rules, and even like unless one is trending toward a sweep by the time they announce comedy series, we're really not going to know who the winner is until they say it. So at this point, I'm going down with Maisel. We'll see where it goes, and then quietly hoping for the surprise. Quietly hoping that the momentum since the nominations came out has built around some of the ones that didn't necessarily have it across the board, and maybe we'll see a little FX surprise come Emmy night. But yeah, I think to me still Schitt's Creek has more of a Friday Night Lights kind of vibe, where like a couple of the actors and a couple like maybe the writing will get key Emmys, and that'll be the acknowledgement, while the juggernaut that is beloved across the board will continue to rack up a series win or another series win. But we'll see. It's going to be, let's hope for craziness. Let's hope for surprises.
That's hard to argue with. I'm absolutely going to be changing my predictions right until they lock things down, because I just can't make up my mind.
I think
what
my goal
is going to happen.
My goal as Root Man is not to change my predictions at all, no matter what has been said or done. Just whatever my gut told me.
That's the spirit, buddy.
Jim Parsons.
For life.
Jim Parsons for life.